if you go to video number 2, so I was just talking about the strengths-based model in autism and, you know, being a bit critical over it, I guess. So, yeah, and I've just been coming across some articles, you know, looking at the strengths-based approach and how it's being used in autism. Questioning the use of autism-specific strengths and I came across another article in Springer.com from February 2023. A repeated cross-sectional study investigating the impact of strengths-based programs on autistic adolescents. It said many autistics possess strengths, and then it gives a list of like the usual stereotypical ones. For example, enhanced visual spatial processing. For me, that's an extreme weakness. So again, I find this quite offensive. And again, it really definitely does kind of like, you know, if you're not strong enough, this could really potentially affect an autistic person who doesn't have these strengths, self-esteem, because they're the same old strengths that always come out with. And then loads of autistic, many autistic people do have like really good visual spatial processing. Lots of autistic people actually really struggle with that, particularly those who have non-verbal learning disability profile, which is also actually a proposed other name for that is actual visual spatial learning disability, and that's what I have. That's basically what it is, a visual spatial learning disability, but where you have really good verbal skills. You know, that's going to be your weakness. That doesn't mean that you can't work around it or can't compensate with it. I'm really bad at visual spatial stuff, but I can find workarounds. It just takes me a lot longer, and I need to process things a lot longer. So it doesn't mean like you can't do it. It's not like, you know, I personally don't think that you can ever say I can't do something 100%. Like, obviously there are certain things I can't do, like I will never be able to work. But aside from that, you know what I mean? There are like, for what I'm trying to say is, that's probably one way of putting it. I'll say it again. So there are some things that obviously is going to be completely unrealistic to ever attain. We have to be realistic there. But like with certain tasks, like say I might have a profound weakness in the visual spatial area, but that doesn't mean that like with the right tuition or whatever, or given enough time and enough processing, that I might still potentially be able to learn something. It doesn't mean you can't do it like 100%. It just means it's going to take you a hell of a lot longer. But anyway, it is a weakness of mine, let's be frank. So saying enhanced visual spatial processing is definitely, you know, that is just, you know, lots of autistic people really struggle with that. So, and then the other one is attention. Well, what about autistics with ADHD? In actual fact, a lot of autistic people have ADHD, or at least traits of ADHD. Memory and sensory acuity. Again, some autistic people do have great sensory acuity, but not all of them. A predisposition to monotropic tendencies or ability to hyper-focus on areas of interest underpins the drive of many autistics to build expertise in specific areas. So that bit is true. As a general rule, autistic people do tend, on average, to be monotropic and this ability to hyper-focus, but that doesn't mean that that's going to be enough to offset the disability, and it doesn't make you employable. It might for some, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be a case for the majority of autistics. Indeed, quite the opposite. Most autistics won't. Collectively, these attributes contribute to high performance in areas such as, again, the usual classic tropes, stereotypes, technology, maths. It does mention also creative or artistic pursuits, but still, it's kind of like, why do you need to be extra? Why do you need to be extra talented in those areas? Why can't you just exist? Like, lots of autistic people aren't extra talented in those areas, and why does, you know, it's almost like you have to justify your existence if you're autistic, and it's also like reducing everything to this kind of tired old trope of, oh, you're autistic, you're more creative, oh, you're autistic, you're going to be good at maths, and it's so stereotypical and offensive. It doesn't matter whether it's positive in inverted commas, stereotypes is stereotypes is stereotypes is stereotypes. I don't need to say that often enough. A stereotype is a stereotype is a stereotype. It is offensive and dehumanising. You should take each person on their own individual merits. And again, it talks about how interventions largely targeting impairments promote feelings of disempowerment. No, it doesn't do that for me. It's like, yeah, this is like, autism is a disability, for crying out loud. Like, autism is a disability. Like, you don't get diagnosed for autism because of your strengths, do you? You get diagnosed with autism because you have certain difficulties, mainly affecting social skills and rigidities and repetitivities and sensitivities. You get diagnosed because those difficulties are causing you problems in life, to a clinical level. You know, and you need to get those difficulties recognised and supported. That doesn't result in disempowerment. I feel empowered when people take my difficulties and disabilities seriously and give me the support I need. Then my strengths can shine. For once I do have, they can't offset my disability, but at least I can focus on my strengths and live as good a life as it's possible to lead with this condition, as long as I get the support that I need. That's what empowers me. So of course, you talk about your difficulties because you need them difficulties supported. And this whole strengths-based crap, this positive psychology crap, it's just, if you ask me, it's just really toxic. And it's affecting those with most severely disabled the most. I guess like those who are least disabled, maybe it doesn't affect them so much, precisely because they don't have so many difficulties in the first place. But I just find it deeply offensive. And it talks about here how the social model challenges the deficit-focused medical model where disability seems to be the problem of the individuals, focusing on what cannot do. And then it talks about how there are poor employment outcomes due to not recognising multiple strengths.